Flat, put your first pattern piece towards the bottom. Along the edge, you're going to put your pins so that they go in and out, and they're picking up your fabric. You want to make sure your pattern continues to lay flat. You're going to pin all the way around. Make sure you put a pin at every corner and every notch. That way your pattern doesn't lift up when you go to cut it out. Are you ready? When you're cutting out your pattern, you're going to follow your pattern size line. This one is an extra large. I highlighted it in orange. You cut around your notches. Keep your fabric as flat as possible when you're cutting, so that you're cutting to the size of your pattern. After your piece is cut out, you're going to take out your pins and you're going to lay out your fabric at the top. You're going to put this pattern piece up here and pin it in place. So you're going to pull your pattern, your fabric left over down. Place your pattern on it. Again, we have the selvages on both sides. I think I forgot to mention that. Your cut edges are at the top and at the bottom. And again, you're going to pin it in place, making sure your pattern is laying flat all the way around. Second piece is pinned on correctly. You're going to go ahead and cut it out. Again, keep your fabric flat as possible while you're cutting, so you get a nice straight line on your fabric. Now you have your two pieces, one left, one right. Right side's up. You're going to take your two small edges and match your notches. See how nicely they match? And you're going to pin them together and you're going to sew a 5/8 seam. Get them as even as possible. If they're off a little bit, it's okay. We can make adjustments. Okay, so if you want to mark your fabric and put your 5/8 seam allowance, you're going to go to the 5th line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put your blue strip right on that 5th line. You're going to put the edge of your pattern or your ruler on the edge of your cut fabric, and you're going to make a little line on either side. This will make you another stitching line if you need more than just the machine guide line. Of our pant leg, or our shorts leg in this case. We have our sewing machine set up. It's going to be on a straight stitch. Make sure both threads are under your presser foot to begin. You're going to line up your blue line, or you're going to use the marking edge that says 5/8, your seam guide. Line up your needle to your sewing line. Put your needle down, put your presser foot down. Take your first pin out. You're going to go forward a couple of stitches. You're going to reverse, and then you're going to sew all the way down. As you get to your pins, stop, take them out. And when you get to the bottom of your stitching line, you're going to reverse again, or back stitch. That locks your needles in, or it locks your stitches in. Make sure your take-up lever is up. Lift up your presser foot and it will slide right out. If it doesn't slide right out, your presser foot or your take-up lever is not in the right spot. Trim your threads close to your fabric. And we have our first seam, where the two sides come together. And then you repeat for the second one. Now you're at the iron. You're going to take your seam allowance, which is the part from the stitching line to the cut edge. You're going to just trim off your notches that you use to line those up. I suggest you do this on the table so you don't cut a hole in your shorts, something I have done before. You're going to open this up, just like we did on our pillows. Open that up and you're going to press it flat. This will help it stay open when you go to sew your right side to your left side. So here's one and here's two. Okay, so now you're gonna take this one, either one, it doesn't matter. You're gonna make it right side out. Right side out is the pretty side, the side that you're gonna see when you're all finished. See that nice seam? You're gonna take this one and leave it the way it is. You're gonna put the right side inside so that the right sides or pretty sides are together. You're gonna match up these two seams here. Those are your inseams. A little awkward, but it's okay, it'll work. And see, the right sides are together. So you're gonna match these two seams up. Whoops, gotta grab it. I always suggest pinning your seam allowances down so they don't bunch up when you're sewing. So that's nice and flat. Now you're gonna take this side. You're gonna get these notches as close as possible. For some reason, these aren't matching up, but our top edge does match up. So that's what's really important.
If it doesn't, can you trim it?
You can trim it. Trim it off after we put it together, sure. If it doesn't match, don't worry about it. Just make sure your edges are matching. And you're gonna pin it all the way around. Okay, so we have... Make sure your top edges match, get your edges as close as possible, and so that this doesn't confuse you, go ahead and trim those off if they don't line up. It's not that big a deal. It's just a guide. For some reason, it's not lining up, so we're just gonna remove it. Then we're gonna go back to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew 5/8 of an inch all the way around from the top of the waistband, down through the crotch, and then back up to the other side of the waistband. Okay, so we're gonna line up on our 5/8 seam allowance on the guide plate. If you wanna make the blue line using the ruler, go ahead and do that before you do this part. So you're gonna line it up. Gotta take that pin out. Put your presser foot down. You're gonna go a couple of stitches, lock it in, back stitch. You're gonna stitch all the way around. Let the machine pull it through. You make sure whatever's under your hand is flat. If you end up sewing a crease in there, it's gonna look funny on the outside. So take your time, don't go too fast. I suggest you guys don't go over 2 on your seam, on your speed. I'm a little bit more experienced. I'm going 3, but I'm controlling with the pressure of my foot. Now your crotch area is curved, so you gotta turn your fabric as you're sewing. Whenever you stop, make sure your needle's in your fabric so that your fabric doesn't shift. You're gonna continue sewing, and I'm just guiding that nice and slow, following that curve that we cut out. Make sure what's in front of you is nice and flat. Make sure this is flat. We don't want any creases or pins or puckers. Take your pin out. Almost to the home stretch. Again, we're still 5/8 of an inch. Take that last pin out. When you get to the edge, don't sew off the fabric, but do a reverse stitch to lock it in. Remember, the machine pulls it in and out. You just let the machine do the work and your stitches will line up. Raise your take-up lever, pull your fabric out, trim it close, and you should have a very nice seam. Where's the other side? You should have a very nice stitching line going all the way in. See how this caught? I took my pin out a little bit too soon, but that's okay. That's not a big deal.